Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. We've got a very interesting and very high-profile topic that we're going to discuss today, and I'd like to welcome our two speakers. We have Judith Slater, who's the Consul General and Regional Trade Commissioner for the EUKGT region, and also David Machin, who's Trade Attaché at the British Embassy in Ankara. Both our colleagues in the embassy and the consulate are deeply involved in the trade negotiations going on with Turkey. So it's very important that we get their views on the current state of play. And I'm sure our audience, which from what I understand, we have over 220 people registered, and we have around 50% from UK and 50% from Turkey. I mean, given the subject matter, it's just as important for our Turkish members as it is for our UK members to understand, the likely outcome of the trade negotiations, which are also incumbent on, the outcome of the UK's trade negotiations with the EU. So, it is a very delicate subject. And I'm sure our two speakers will be well aware of trying to keep both Turkey and the EU on side. And it's not an easy task to do, but I'm sure we'll have some positive news coming out of the webinar. As we all know, the COVID situation globally is not getting any better. And, we want to make sure that as far as Turkey and UK are concerned, that we don't let it interfere too much with the direction of travel with the two countries in order to establish a long-term trading negotiation. I mean, we currently have approximately £19 billion worth of bilateral trade, and that's substantial, something that we want at least to maintain going forward, and to eliminate any barriers at all to progressing our trade relationship with Turkey going forward. So what we're going to discuss today, we're going to be looking at tariffs, which David will give us some insights on, particularly the UKGT, the UK Global Tariff introductions, other issues, for example, like rules of origin, and also just what we have to prepare for given various scenarios. So it's a very high-profile topic, and I'm sure our companies that have signed in will be very interesting to hear what we have to say, and also will help them to prepare for the various scenarios that we could have by the end of this year. So let me start with going to Judith to give a quick overview as to what the state of play is with the current negotiations. Thank you.
Hi. Yes. Morning. Morning, everybody. Morning, Chris.
Morning.
Hi. Thanks, everyone, for joining. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the British Consul General here in Istanbul, and I'm the Trade Commissioner for the wider region, of which Turkey is our most important trading partner. I just wanted to say a couple of words about what we do for those that are joining who may not be familiar with what how we work with the Chamber and what DIT does before we come on to the negotiations and the topic of the day. I mean, our team, we have a DIT team of about 20 in Turkey. We work closely in partnership with the Chamber to ensure between us that we're providing support to British businesses, large and small, who want to do business with Turkey. The Chamber in general terms supports the SME end of the spectrum and helps them to find partners, etc. here. And DIT, the Department for International Trade, we liaise with the Turkish system. We intervene to help bigger businesses who might be facing market access challenges, barriers, protectionist measures, these sorts of things. We provide access to ministers, to government departments. We're making sure there's a level playing field for those of you who are doing business here. We undertake what we call the G2G work. So the trade working group tomorrow, it will be between officials, and there'll also be a ministerial conversation going on tomorrow as well. So in some sectors like defence and security, the G2G relationship is paramount, and therefore we're very, very involved in that sector. And in other sectors, we're less involved because there's less requirements. But we're doing a lot here in Turkey on technology, financial and professional services, healthcare, energy, education. These are the sort of sectors. UK export finance, we work with them, and we're looking to help Turkish contractors with their projects all around the world. There's an interesting proposition which UK Export Finance has, where 20% UK content and you're eligible for to be underwritten by UK Export Finance. So there's lots of exciting, interesting areas that we're working in. As Chris mentioned, last year was a record year, almost £19 billion of bilateral trade between UK and Turkey. And it's hugely important to the UK. Even before COVID came along, this was one of our top relationships. We were working hard on what we're going to come on to talk about in a minute, getting the FTA in place. But of course, with COVID having come along and the really difficult economic circumstances which that means for both the UK and Turkey, it makes it even doubly important that we continue to do the work that I was just talking about, and also that we continue to work hard to get a free trade agreement in place. The UK and Turkey have been working closely on this since I've been here. I mean, I arrived here towards the end of 2016, so I arrived here shortly after the Brexit referendum in the UK. And in actual fact, I was present at a meeting where the then Secretary of State, Liam Fox, in 2016 said that he wanted to have a trade working group with Turkey. He saw this as a big priority, and it was formally launched the following January by then Prime Minister Theresa May. So the trade working group has been in place for best part of 3.5 years, and it's had 8 formal sessions of both sides. But between that, a lot of other work has gone on, and we've been working really hard with our shared goal to make sure that we have a trade agreement in place by the end of the transition period, which is the end of this year, as you'll probably be aware. We're holding this 9th round of talks tomorrow. And the UK-Turkey agreement, what it's looking to do is to replicate as far as possible. And I say that as far as possible because it won't be able to do that 100%. But to replicate as far as possible the current provisions which are afforded under the EU-Turkey trading arrangements. And the bilateral agreements between Turkey and the UK will sit alongside any trade agreement which the UK and the EU manages to secure. And those of you that follow the news about the UK and about the EU will be aware that those talks are also ongoing at the moment. And this is complicated because of Turkey's membership of the Customs Union. But this bilateral agreement that we're working to secure between the UK and Turkey will be important for supporting both our economies, to protect jobs, and to strengthen our very vital trading relationship that I've been referring to. So we even despite COVID, we have been able to make progress. The way that we're making progress right now, i.e. talking to you virtually. So the last working group, which we held a month ago, was done virtually. The one tomorrow will be being done virtually. And of course, there's no reason why you can't make progress that way. So that's what we'll be doing. And in fact, this crisis has demonstrated that whilst there are many, many downsides, that some new opportunities have come to light. And those of you that work with us closely on a regular basis will know that the team has been very, very preoccupied, for example, in recent months, looking to source PPE equipment, personal protection equipment for the National Health Service from Turkey, and quite a bit of the Turkish textile sector has turned itself over to producing PPE equipment during COVID, and that's an area where we've been able to work together, so that's been a positive. We have regular engagement between our ministers. So whilst we're having the working group between officials, Secretary of State Liz Truss is having a meeting with Turkish Trade Minister Risha Pekcan and our new Trade Policy Minister Ranal Jayawardena and Deputy Trade Minister Consul Bator will also be having a meeting in the middle of that trade working group tomorrow as a demonstration of how much senior commitment there is to getting this deal done. And we've also been working in parallel with getting the trade agreement in place on market, what I mentioned when I was talking about what the sort of things that we do on market access barriers. So we have a session in the trade working group to talk about things which are holding back progress in particular sectors. So for example, the alcoholic beverages sector, the pharmaceuticals sector, the telecom sector. We raise issues that our businesses have to demonstrate that it's not all about just having an FTA. There are also many things that we can do to enhance our trade and investment that go beyond the content of an FTA. So that was what I wanted to say by way of introduction. I think I'm going to hand over to David, aren't I, Chris? And then I'm looking forward to answering with David the many questions which I'm sure people will have about this subject.
Yeah, thanks, Judith. And we will be coming back to you before we get on to questions, just for a quick update on David's presentation as well. So if we could go to David now, and just one other point I'd like to make for everybody is that if you will go to the Q&A button and register your questions there, we will be dealing with them at the end of the presentation. So please, we want to hear your questions. We want to understand what your concerns are so that we can give you some reassurance on that. So we'll deal with that at the end. If we go to David now and get some updates now on where we are on potential new tariffs with the two scenarios that we may end up with, and just the impact on UKGT on our bilateral trade. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, Consul General, and good morning, everyone on the line, esteemed business members. So, as Chris mentions, there's a lot of interest in tariffs and how the tariffs between our countries might change post this year. And the answer is, we hope not very much at all. So, as the Consul General has outlined, the full intention that we have through our government-to-government discussions to prepare a bilateral free trade agreement is to pursue this principle of continuity and to use our bilateral trade deal to lock in the benefits that we've had of being in the same customs union relationship for the past 2.5 decades on the vast majority of our trade. And we estimate that around 95% of our bilateral trade does come under those existing arrangements. And that is why it's really important for us in the UK government, and I know it's the same for our colleagues in the Turkish administration, that we really do meet our objective there and ensure that deal is ready by the end of the year. But I will say a few words about the UK Global Tariff, because it's the first time the UK has set an independent tariff in around 5 decades. It will come into effect on the 1st of January next year and replace the European Union's common external tariff on goods that come into the UK from countries with whom we do not have a free trade agreement. And so while we hope this will not ever be needed for Turkish exports to the UK under goods currently traded in the customs union, I think it'll be interesting to know what the alternative scenario would be and what tariffs will be charged to exporters from countries with whom the UK does not have a free trade agreement. Also worth mentioning that there's that small category of goods, a few percent, that are currently outside the scope of the customs union, and therefore the UK Global Tariff would apply to those goods, and that's primarily agricultural goods. So the UK Global Tariff, what is it? It's effectively the UK's MFN, Most Favoured Nation tariff. It will support business by simplifying tariffs. It will, in many cases, reduce or remove tariffs, and it's around twice as liberal as the EU's current common external tariff. 6,000 tariff lines have been removed, and any tariffs that we call nuisance tariffs, by which we've defined as being under 2%, we have removed because it doesn't add any real protection anyway, but it does create burdens for business. When it comes to the EU's complex mirroring table, we've scrapped thousands of unnecessary tariffs on products such as biscuits, pizzas, quiches, spreads, so many of those agricultural goods. And we estimate, according to our own internal calculations, that the UK Global Tariff will ensure 60% of all trade coming into the UK from next year on WTO terms will be tariff-free. So this will have the effect of lowering tariffs for businesses, and we believe it will be very beneficial for the UK economy overall. The reason for that is we're able to remove tariffs on goods that come into the UK to contribute to manufacturing that is then re-exported, which is around a quarter of the goods imported into the UK. It will remove tariffs on items where the UK does not have a strong domestic manufacturing base. And some of those items include dishwashers and freezers, both of which are items that Turkey does trade in. Christmas trees will have their tariff removed from 2.5% to 0%, which is good news indeed. However, there will be tariffs maintained on a few select products where the UK, following consultation with businesses, felt it was necessary to maintain some level of protection. Those areas are some agricultural products, such as lamb, beef, and poultry. The 10% tariff on cars will be maintained due to the sensitive nature of that sector's trade with the rest of the world. Tariffs will be maintained on some ceramic products, and tariffs will be maintained on textile products as well. The other area of interest, due to the recent pandemic, of course, is pharmaceutical and medical devices, where the UK, including ventilators, where the UK government will remove tariffs for the vast majority of those items. These items and the tariff lines that will be applied from the 1st of January next year can all be accessed on the government.uk webpage, gov.uk, and there is a HS code tariff lookup tool, which shows you the current tariff applied by the EU's common external tariff and the new tariff that would be applied from the 1st of January next year. The tariffs will be listed in British pounds rather than euros, because as an independent trading nation, we will, like most other independent trading nations, use our own currency for those calculations. And that figure has been based on a 5-year average from the last 5 years conversion rate between the British pound and the euro. So that's where we are on tariffs. As Judith has mentioned, the intention for UK-Turkey trade is to ensure that the customs union goods are kept tariff-free through our bilateral free trade agreement, and to only charge those tariffs on the goods outside of that arrangement, which is agriculture. Even in those agricultural products, I think that's quite good news for Turkish trade, because there are no tariffs that have gone higher. Some have remained the same, for example, in lamb and poultry, but there's around 150 items, agricultural products, where tariffs have been reduced or removed, for example, in areas like olives. So I think, broadly speaking, good news if we can ensure that the free trade agreement is ready and implemented by the end of the year. And that is very much where the UK Department for International Trade's focus is, meeting again tomorrow, as Judith noted, with the Turkish Ministry of Trade to advance those discussions. I'll leave it there for now, Chris, but very happy to take questions.
David, before you Judith may want to answer this. I mean, there are questions about rules of origin. Do you see any potential issues there that we need to be aware of?
Very good question. So we actually had a detailed rules of origin discussion between the two governments at expert level last week to work out how we'll do this. Our intention, our starting point, is continuity here. Clearly, there are linkages to what happens with the European Union deal, because I think most of that policy space under rules of origin from Turkey's perspective is linked to the customs union. So our hope and our aspiration, I think, as the UK and Turkey, is that the UK-EU deal will enable us to have something ambitious and that resembles continuity in the UK-Turkey deal. I think we'd like to see a full diagonal accumulation applied, so that we can continue to use parts from each other's economies and sectors in our bilateral trade when we re-export between our countries. And that's quite important for some key sectors, for example, electronics, white goods, and automotive. This will be one of the final areas of the agreement that is finalized because of that linkage to the European Union agreement. But I think the good news is that we're starting from the same position, and indeed, not only in rules of origin, but across the piece, that it's quite remarkable in this trade negotiation that the UK and Turkey see everything more or less in the same way in terms of our objectives, and there are no major disagreements on any individual area. But rules of origin is a complex one because of that linkage, and I think we still need to wait a few more weeks to see where we get to with the UK and the EU. But rest assured that at the bilateral London to Ankara level, that we're having those discussions at expert level to prepare for those various eventualities.
Thank you, David. I mean, just a quick comment on, I mean, there are other potential dynamics in play at the moment, you know, given, you know, the current issues with China, and particularly with the US and also with the UK to a certain extent. And, you know, we hear a lot of questions about, you know, whether Turkey could actually play a role in shortening supply chains in, as you know, there's political distancing going on now with China, and whether, you know, Turkey could play a role in terms of trade as UK companies, and we've had questions about this, actually looking for an alternative to China, which is closer to the market, and you know, Turkey could actually play a role in that. And you know, if we have an environment where, you know, that would be a far more attractive proposition, then, you know, we both countries could really benefit from that.
No, I completely agree with that, Chris. You know, we would obviously do everything we could to, you know, support Turkish businesses who wanted to sort of move into that space. As you know, I mean, there's going to be a lot of competition to fill that space, but Turkey will be one of the leading contenders as one of the biggest economies. And as you mentioned, and it's one of the things we're always reminding people of, just the proximity of Turkey to the UK compared to Asian competition. It's a lot easier. But as David mentions, and I think that it's worth underlying the point that David just made about, and you mentioned this as well, really, the dependence for our agreement on the EU-UK agreement. So the British negotiators and the Turkish negotiators are not, you know, we've mentioned that we've been meeting for 3 years. That's not because we're in dispute about things and we're sort of trying to, you know, hammer out an agreement. We're in a unique situation in that we are waiting on the other agreement in several aspects. And as your listeners will very many of them will be aware, that these things tend to all fall into place at the last minute, and you can't, you know, until it's a bit like a Rubik cube, until it's not done until all of it's done. So it is a uniquely complicated situation, but we're all working on, we're on the same side, we and the Turks, in wanting to get this done as soon as we can. And also, I mean, it's also worth saying that you know, we do have ambitions for it to go further than the continuity at some point in the future. But the priority on both sides is that we don't miss the deadline and we don't end up with a gap. So we want to get a continuity agreement, as we call it, in place. And then that does not preclude us moving into other areas which are not covered by this agreement in the future. So there's, you know, there's a lot to play for.
Yeah, thank you, Judith. And just a quick comment on your regional responsibilities as well, and you know, what the benefits of having a strong free trade agreement with Turkey will be in terms of, you know, how we can then expand that into the region where Turkey has a lot of presence, a lot of investment, particularly in Central Asia, and also with Russia.
Yes, well, no, I mentioned the UK Export Finance and how UK Export Finance is working with Turkish businesses, you know, in some parts of the region. Turkmenistan, for example, you wouldn't expect necessarily UK Export Finance to be covering, but they do have cover in Turkmenistan. Russia is a complicated one for lots of reasons that we'll be aware of. But we do £16 billion worth of trade with Russia, so it's not very far behind Turkey, and that's in spite of sanctions which cover certain sectors, and in spite of, you know, current difficulties. So we support business there in much the same way as we do here, and many of the big businesses that are here are also in Russia. But yes, I mean, I think you're right. Yeah, we have different strengths from Turkish businesses, and that's really what the export finance offer is about. Because, as you'll know, Turkish contractors second only to China in terms of their numbers, and in terms of their quality, and in terms of their reach. And British architecture, consultancy, finance, these sorts of things, married up with Turkish contractors, makes a very, very strong offering.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I've got a couple of other ones that come into play here, which I think are also critical to our long-term trading relationship with Turkey, and that's bilateral investment, for want of a better word. So it's how we can get UK companies to look at Turkey as an investment destination, and also Turkish companies to look at UK as an investment destination. And I think that whole environment will be enhanced if we do get a strong free trade agreement with Turkey, because it will really give people confidence then to look at where they want to invest and expand their businesses.
Absolutely, yes, and you'll know that whilst some investment from some countries into the UK slowed in the aftermath of the Brexit referendum vote and the uncertainty that brought, investment from Turkey did not slow in the same way. And our team here has been very successful. We have four people sitting here in Istanbul supporting Turkish investors into the UK. We've done various events. We had a very big conference that many of your listeners, I hope, would have been attending in January, or was it February? Anyway, earlier the year, before COVID. This is some pre-COVID and post-COVID. It was pre-COVID, and we would very much hope to do another one of those, all being well, early part of next year. And there's a lot of buzz, lots of excitement about Turkish, particularly technology companies setting up in the UK. We've got quite a long list of those who have already done that. Because of what London in particular offers as far as getting finance and all of that. So the team, but it's not just, there are even some investors, greenfield sites, building factories. So there's all sorts of different investment going on. But you're right, similarly, we're wanting to encourage British businesses to come to Turkey as well. And that's, we're all working towards that too.
Thank you, Judith. David, if we could just come back to you. I'm seeing some of the questions that are cropping up, and some of them revolve around, and we can go into them in more detail later, but about what is the plan B given the Brexit negotiations don't come to a satisfactory conclusion.
It's a good question. I think it's one I can't give you a clear answer on right now, but I can sort of paint a bit of a picture of what that might look like. So according to WTO rules, if we don't have a free trade agreement in place, both the UK and Turkey have to apply tariffs to each other on the basis of its MFN tariffs, to the rate that it applies equally to all other members of the World Trade Organization with whom there's no free trade agreement in place. And that's clearly a scenario we want to avoid. And that is why our efforts over the last 3 years have been to work on a draft free trade agreement text, and ministers in both countries very much support that. We hope that there will be a deal in place between the UK and the European Union that would make that possible. If there isn't a deal in place between the UK and the European Union, and I think some of the comments in the chat box have suggested the kind of concerns around that, then that takes you into uncharted waters. Because normally Turkey is not permitted to sign comprehensive trade agreements with partners with whom the European Union doesn't have such a free trade deal. And that's because it's obliged to apply the common external tariff of the European Union. I think for us, what that means is very uncertain. I think ministers, if we were to reach that scenario, and we hope we don't, ministers in Ankara and ministers in London would have to consult on what we want to do. One of the scenarios is wait until there is a deal in place between the UK and the European Union, but that would mean a reversion to WTO tariffs, which would be damaging. The UK Global Tariff does remove quite a few of those tariffs, but it leaves some tariffs in place in some sectors that Turkey exports a lot in, which is automotive and textile. In electronics and white goods, there were reduced tariffs compared to the EU's tariffs, but there's still some. In the other direction, I think UK exporters would face potentially high tariff lines in Turkey on some areas. So it's certainly not a scenario that we would want to go for. There is a question on, could you do a kind of deal which doesn't cover the areas under the customs union? So things like agriculture, iron, coal and steel, in theory, yes, but its coverage would really be smaller. Or is there any way to do something as an emergency to cover the customs union relationship? But it's difficult to see how that would match up with Turkey's obligations to the customs union. So that discussion would have to take place at a senior level if we ended up in that scenario, but we very much hope that we don't. Of course, tariffs are only one part of the equation, and if we do revert to WTO tariffs for a short period, that will not be the end of trade between our countries, but it would be an additional burden. I think it wouldn't affect some areas. So the investment relationship, as we've covered, is strong. And just last year, the UK was the second largest investor overall in Turkey. And in many sectors, the UK is the lead investor. For example, in the pharmaceutical sector, the telecom sector, the oil and gas sector, second largest investor. So there is that really important relationship that would not be undone. To put it into perspective, the UK's largest export partner is the United States. And the UK does not have a free trade deal with the United States. So it would not be the end of the world, but it's clearly a scenario we do want to avoid. And there isn't a definite answer I can give you as to what would happen if we ended up in a UK-EU no-deal situation.
Thank you, Dave. A difficult one, I know, but I mean, just going through, if we can just go into some of the Q&As now. I think Nedjet was the first online with a question there, and I think you've just answered that in terms of what the likely situation would be given the no deal. I mean, Kubra Guler has asked a question about olive oil from Turkey. I think that would come under agriculture. From what you've said, I don't think there'd be any increased tariffs on that. Is that correct or not?
So it's a good question. And so in terms of the UK Global Tariff, olive oil tariffs have not been changed in terms of our MFN tariff. However, preserved olives, dried olives will have their tariffs liberalised. So that is a benefit for the olives in that form. There will be liberalisation of other agricultural items that Turkey is good at exporting. For example, pistachios will have tariffs removed. Some dried fruits will have them partially removed. Figs will have the tariffs lowered, but there'll still be some tariffs in place. So there is a better picture, I think, in agriculture. Olive oil will not have its tariff removed through the global tariff. It's something that would need to be discussed bilaterally between the UK and Turkey, and I think that is something that we have discussed between the two governments, but there's no concrete outcome at this stage.
Thank you. We have a question from James on textiles, and he's referring to the lead times on textiles in terms of new designs, new ranges, and so on and so forth. And the lead times on that are longer than most other ready-made goods. And I think he's asking the question, we need clarity in the next couple of months before we potentially need to look at alternative sources. And I think that's a very relevant and high-profile question because of textiles, textile sector in Turkey, and obviously it's a large proportion of our bilateral trade, particularly from Turkey to UK. So there will be sectors who do need answers relatively quickly in order to keep their supply chains working.
Yes, I think we absolutely recognise that, and I share the desire to have more clarity. The difficulty for us is that between the UK and Turkey, we do have a very clear timetable. We would like to have our bilateral FTA text ready by the end of September, so that we can ensure it's put into legislation by the beginning of November at the latest, which will ensure that by the 1st of January, when we enter this new period and transition out of the transition period of the customs union, that we will move straight and smoothly into the new trading relationship with zero tariffs. The reason for the delay is because there's still uncertainty in the UK-EU relationship. I think things are going well in many areas of that negotiation, but there are a couple of sticking points that are still a bit tricky, and I think the biggest one, of course, is the so-called level playing field, regulatory alignments, and the other one being fisheries. And we might see progress on those in the next few weeks, and if we do, that will then unlock the sort of situation for us bilaterally between London and Ankara to complete our draft text. But I share that ambition, and I very much hope we will know by September, because beyond that, time is running out for businesses to prepare on both sides of the equation, and it also makes things very difficult at a government level to get the text ready and avoid any gap in implementation.
I mean, not an easy one by any means. There's a question again on is there any kind of regulatory ease on food goods imported to Turkey? So this is looking at the food sector, maybe food and beverages coming into Turkey.
So from the UK to Turkey.
Yeah.
So I think in the first stage, we might call this a first phase FTA. We've pursued this principle of continuity. So we would look to more or less copy the existing regulations and recognition. So there shouldn't be any significant change in that first phase. I think where there are particular difficulties that sometimes arise in this sector, the embassy is able to have those discussions with the Turkish Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Trade if we can help unblock any particular issues. But at a broad level, we're not looking to change the arrangement significantly in this first phase FTA. I think there will be a second phase FTA in the future, which will be more ambitious and comprehensive to build upon where we are now at some point in the future, and that will be the place to look to liberalise agricultural trade further if both governments decide to do so.
Thank you. I mean, moving on, well, thank you for the webinar. And the question is really asking more information on tariffs on seafood products exported to the UK. So seafood.
Seafood, sorry, I didn't hear that. Seafood. As before, so seafood from Turkey to the UK.
Yeah.
So no, we wouldn't expect any significant change in this first phase FTA, where tariffs and quotas will look very similar to they are now. So I suspect no immediate change. There are of course wider factors that play into this. So it very much depends on what the UK agrees with other countries as well, in terms of is Turkey able to gain any kind of tariff advantage or not, or quota advantage. But it is something that we could look at in a second phase FTA if there were a desire in the space of fisheries to expand trade in either direction. And clearly the UK already is an importer of Turkish seafood, in particular sea bass, and the UK is obviously an expert at producing farmed salmon, and we don't currently export any to Turkey. So there are opportunities there that we could look at in the second phase FTA.
Okay, just moving to another one, which I think we've covered, but I just sort of raise it. It's that in terms of UK companies who manufacture in China and then export to Turkey from the UK, would the current tariffs remain the same?
It depends on the sector. So the tariffs that would apply for any good exporting from China to the UK would be using the UK Global Tariff. I think there was a question in the chat box around smartphones, if I saw it correctly, and tariffs will remain at zero. So none of the tariffs will be increased. So when we've taken the European Union's common external tariffs to create the UK Global Tariff, we have never increased any tariff. So they're either the same, reduced, or removed.
Is it worth saying something about, just briefly, about the Turkish additional tariffs? Because I know there was a question from a chamber member last week about that. Just very briefly, because in case, to make sure there's no confusion about what they're about. David, would you mind?
Yes, so they're happy to. So, when I talk about the UK Global Tariff, I'm specifically referring to the import duty paid on goods that enter the United Kingdom from a country with whom the UK doesn't have a free trade deal. In the other direction, as I think many members know, Turkey applies the common external tariff, but in some goods applies an additional tariff on top for items imported into Turkey from outside of the customs union and FTA partners. And in some categories that can be quite high. That currently doesn't impact any UK exports that come directly from the UK, but we have had some British companies who manufacture partially in the Far East, in China, and they import the goods to the UK or the EU and then onto Turkey, and then they've had to pay the additional tariff. So that does affect our trade to some extent. Clearly, if we didn't have a free trade agreement in place, that would be a bigger burden to trade. And we're very keen to ensure that in both directions, there are no tariffs applied on all goods that will be covered by the free trade agreement.
Thank you, David. I'm sorry we're burdening you with all these questions, but there are a lot coming in, as you would imagine. There is a question here: is there any possibility of UK joining PEM convention, and any possibility of diagonal accumulation to be established between UK and the EU?
These are some very good technical questions. So on the question on PEM,
if it's going to take too long, we can take it offline.
Sure, very happy to. So the PAN,
this has come up a few times though, hasn't it, PEM? So
yeah, so the Pan-Euro-Mediterranean Convention. So the short answer is we don't know. So the UK has not made a decision yet on which plurilateral trade agreements that it might join after it finishes the transition period, because first of all, we're focusing on the bilateral trade agreements, including with countries in the PEM Convention, such as Turkey, to ensure that we lock in our current market access and trading terms, which are really good, and to do that first, and then to look at the question of whether we might want to join any particular plurilateral trading arrangements, one of which is PEM. So no answer yet, but we will have one in the next couple of months. On accumulation, joining the PEM Convention might help that issue to some extent, though clearly PEM Convention, as the name suggests, Pan-Euro-Mediterranean, only covers some of the partners with whom the UK trades, so it wouldn't solve the whole question. But we're very keen, and we have proposed as a government to the European Union that we have full diagonal accumulation between the UK, the European Union, and all of our shared trading partners, including Turkey. And we think that will be really good for business and drive efficiencies and allow us to benefit from globalization in the most effective way. We understand that the European Union is not keen at present to accept that. They fear that the UK might become a sort of assembly hub at the edge of the EU, able to benefit from taking parts from other places assembled in the UK and ship it direct to the EU. And so this is still a point of contention. My feeling, and this is a personal prediction, is that Turkey's in a good place because it has customs union on the majority of its trade with the European Union. So when the EU is looking at countries with whom they might want to agree to accumulation with in terms of the UK, I would think Turkey has a very strong case, but it is still something that isn't resolved. PEM Convention is one way that you might do it, but it's not necessarily the way that the UK will take. Again, something we hope to have more clarity on in a month or two, but I can't give you a concrete answer just yet.
Okay, thank you. Just to skip a few questions, because there are similar questions. There are quite a few questions again about manufacture of origin and particularly products that UK companies have manufactured in China and then re-exported to Turkey. So if we could take those offline for the people that have asked questions about that, if you could please drop us an email to our BCCT, and we can deal with those on a personal basis to give you, a bit more clarity. But I think David has mentioned about that particular scenario, and I think it would take too long to deal with every single one. So give him a bit of a rest. So when I say give him a rest, it doesn't mean to say we're not going to answer the question. But just one point here. Evidently, at the last webinar, we mentioned that we're going to have an environmental conference in the new year, a green conference here in Turkey, and a couple of questions there about could they get more information on that. I think at the moment It's still in the planning stage, but the people who are interested in involving in a green conference in Turkey in the new year, then please let us know, and we can keep you in the loop in terms of how that planning is going. One here, any changes expected to quartz-based engineered stone? Now that's an interesting one. Diamonds are forever.
Well, we can publish, I think also to save time, Chris, David, there's no reason why we can't share with the membership the actual tariff list, can we? The UK Global Tariff.
Absolutely, that is available to everyone on our webpage. So we can share the link, Chris, if that could be distributed, and that answers all of those specific questions on any item with a HS code. So that's tens of thousands of items you can look up and see the.
Yeah, I mean we've got a lot of questions about that, wide and other things. So. As I say, drop us a line, and we can either direct you to the website, or you can go directly. But we'll try and give you a bit more clarity on that. I think Judith dealt with this question: what kind of support and access will DIT be able to give Turkish companies trying to import from the UK? If there is support, how can we take advantage of that? Well, I'll answer that quickly in terms of that's what BCCT do. That's our role. And we provide a number of services that help UK exporters enter the Turkish market. And together with our colleagues in DIT, we ensure that we give you as risk-free journey as possible by either identifying potential partners, looking at distributors, assessing the market, giving you an overview of what the potential of your product is. So again, if you contact us on our BCC website, that's what we do. That's what our DIT colleagues do, and the resources and infrastructure we have in Turkey to support UK exporters is extensive. So please contact us on that.
And if you're a Turkish company wanting to source something from the UK, similarly, we have an export opportunity service where if you let us know what it is you're wanting to source, we have an export opportunity part of the website where we can put that up, and help you to have British businesses who are able to meet that need, bring you together with those as well.
Okay. And again, we've got some questions on textile, as you would expect, in terms of tax responsibilities in the UK and so on. So again, we can give you more detail if you'd like to contact us directly on that. Services has not been mentioned. I mean, where do services come in terms of opportunities in Turkey?
Yeah, I mean, services are not part of the continuity agreement, but there's no reason why they wouldn't form part of a future agreement, and it's an area that's obviously of interest because it's a big strength of both our economies, actually, are strong in services. So we're doing plenty of business in that area now, but we feel as if we could do quite a lot more. So. It's an area for a future agreement. David, I don't know if you want to add to that.
I fully agree, Judith, and it's quite striking that our current bilateral trading relationship is around 75% trading goods, and that doesn't resemble what we see in the UK's other trading relationships with major partners. So that suggests that there's a huge market for services, with 80% of the UK economy being service-based, and I think for Turkey as well. Turkey is a net exporter of services, so there could be some mutual wins there if we were to explore that. Services is not part of the customs union arrangement that Turkey has with the European Union, so that might explain to some extent why it's not become a large part of our bilateral trade to date. Currently, the majority of services the UK exports to Turkey are financial and legal services and transport, and in the other direction, the main Turkish service export to the UK is tourism, which we're clearly a major contributor in most years, perhaps not this year, sadly, but there is room to expand that into many other sectors, and it's something we could look at. if we decided to do a second phase, more comprehensive and ambitious FTA.
Okay, fine. I think that sort of is reference to ICT services is a question there. I mean, technology is a very high priority sector for both UK and Turkey. And yeah, there's been a lot of work done, as Judith has mentioned, on the tech sector. You know, we've had 2 very successful tech conferences here in Turkey that's attracted both investment into UK and also UK companies looking at investing in tech in Turkey. So yeah, that is a high priority. I think we still plan to do our tech conference in the first quarter of 2021. So I mean, when you look at the growth in technology in Turkey, how it's advanced, you know, considerably over the last sort of 5 years, and has now become a serious player. And obviously, UK being, you know, the centre of funding for tech startups, you know, there's a synergy there that you know, we want to build on. So you know, lots of opportunity there, and I think you'll see, you know, tech being, you know, quite a strong sector that you know, we'll be building on as we go forward. So, but anyway, or I think it was who asked that question, and if you want to contact her directly, we can give you a bit more meat on that particular bone. So anyway, I think we've covered most. What are your comments as the last one on this new area of trade between UK and Turkey based on the subject of today's meeting? Should we expect major changes in terms of doing business? Should we expect new opportunities? I think that's a good question to finish on. Just to you know, the opportunities that you know, the free trade agreement will give us, again, I think we plan for what we expect, and what we expect is a free trade agreement. So that's what we're planning for, and you know, the opportunities that we have highlighted, you know, will then follow. But I think, Judith, just a quick summary of you know, where the opportunities will be and how we can realise that potential, and also the same from you, David. Just a minute or two.
Yeah, I mean, I think what David said just now, just to remind people that our biggest trading partner is the US, and we don't have a free trade agreement with the US. So I don't think we should, you know, get too hung up about. We all want to make sure this continuity FTA happens, but a lot of the work we're doing on the opportunities, you know, they're not contingent on the FTA. We're looking in, as you mentioned, the tech sector as a sector that we, you know, hugely keen to develop. The Green Finance Conference, which somebody asked about, is an area that you know, this is a really big growth area, and the UK will be hosting the COP26 conference next year. It was going to be this year, but it's now going to be next year because of COVID. But the Green Conference that we want to hold here is as a result of that, because we see lots of opportunities in that area. Both the UK, you know, and Turkey renewables is a big growth area here. I think healthcare, I ran through some of the sectors at the beginning. The huge healthcare program that's going on here. We signed an MOU on healthcare, which we've been working on for a while between the UK and Turkey. The trade envoy, Lord Jandram, is out here in March, and we were about to go into some more work on that, and then COVID happened, and of course everyone was focused on that. Civil nuclear is an area that we're working in. Defence and security, many British businesses are wanting to sell into the Turkish defence sector. So, you know, that's just a few. And then of course tech. I think tech is a sort of an umbrella that spans many of the sectors, almost all the sectors that we're working in. And we're working between our two businesses in that sector, both yours, both Turkish and the UK. So the free trade agreement will, because it's a continuity agreement, it will allow us people to keep going with what they've been doing. And the market access work, as I mentioned at the beginning, we stand ready to help anyone who's got having any issues about there being a level playing field, to try and level that playing field out, to make sure that you're able to seize the opportunities that are available and that British businesses have as much, as fair a chance of getting that work as anybody else. So it's been great. Really enjoyed it, and please, we can keep this dialogue going beyond this. As you said, Chris, you're available, we're available. Always happy to answer anybody's questions.
Yeah, absolutely, and we will continue to keep everybody in the loop as we progress. David, a few last comments you would like to make?
Sure, and allow me to add my thanks as well, Chris, to you and the team at the BCCT for giving us this platform to speak to your members on what is a very important topic, and we recognise there is still uncertainty, and hopefully we've been able to point out a bit more information about what the different scenarios might look like, and we hope that it will become more certain by September. I think I'm optimistic about the medium to long-term trade relationship. The relationship's grown 70% in the last decade, reaching £19 billion. That's big. We're Turkey's second largest export market. We're the third largest FDI partner of Turkey. But actually, it's striking there's room for a lot more growth. Some research we've undertaken as the embassy suggests that we should be able to take it up to $30 billion within a 5-year time span. That's one piece of evidence we had done. I think there are untapped areas that we haven't really looked at yet, and that a second phase FTA could help open doors in both directions. And I think there are many areas where, because of the strategic relationship and the location of our economies, and the fact we will be the two major economies at either side of the European Union, that suggests there is a lot of room for partnership activity within the European value chains, and also working together in the region and globally as well. So I think there's very good reason to be optimistic in many sectors going forward.
Thank you, David. I think we all support that. I mean, the good thing is we've got two willing partners here looking to come to a mutually beneficial agreement. And that's the basis of actually coming to that mutually beneficial agreement, where you have two willing partners. And obviously there are sensitive areas that need to be still negotiated, but it's in the interest of both countries to at least build on what we've already got and move forward. And I'm confident that our team, Judith and David and the rest, I'd just like to say that you're in very safe hands with that team, and they'll be doing their utmost to make sure that we get to the point where everything is done and dusted, and they'll be doing that as quickly as they possibly can. So I'd like to thank everybody for participating, and we will keep you up to date on a regular basis. Any questions that we've not addressed in the detail you might want, please send us an email, and we'll follow up on that and ensure that you get the information you require. So again, I'd like to thank Judith. Thank you very much. Excellent. David, also excellent. So you'll be seeing more of them, I think, over the next 4 or 5 months, and that will be good as well. So thank you, everybody. I'd like to draw the meeting to a close, and stay safe. And as I say, we will have a good deal. Thank you.
İyi bayramlar, everybody.
İyi bayramlar, yes. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.